Hello, everyone, and welcome to Investment News TV. My name is James Burton here at Schwab Impact 2025 in Denver. Delighted to welcome Riccardella, Head of Index Investing at MSCI. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, James.
So I've been hearing a lot this conference about active ETFs, but maybe to kick things off, ETFs versus index investing. What's your take? Obviously, you're biased, but where do the two shape up together?
Well, so ETFs, I think simply put, are just the preferred commingled vehicle for any investment strategy, regardless of whether it's active or indexed. They, have a place in every portfolio. Obviously, there's been regulatory changes that are going to make them even more accessible. And I think the natural comparison point is ETFs relative to breaking apart that wrapper. And SMAs have obviously been a major theme of this conference, direct indexing in particular. And clearly the incremental advantage of an SMA is both personalization based on what the end client wants, if they have preferences, needs, etc. But very importantly, taxes, because the SMA wrapper allows for sophisticated tax optimization, the generation of tax alpha, and taxes are increasingly important to high net worth individuals.
What are you hearing now from advisors, that is shaping your strategy?
Well, a couple of things that we're hearing. The first, on the tax front, what's been interesting to witness at this conference is the proliferation of 130/30 strategies. There's been a lot more leverage employed in direct index and traditional SMAs. And in my view, that allows for more degrees of freedom to meet very specific needs. I think the other thing that we're increasingly hearing from advisors and home offices is the increasing automation of the investment process, right? Whether it's some of the tax optimization I already described, whether it is taking model portfolios that are best in class and then allowing for some sort of personalized implementation at the account level. It really feels like we're heading into a brave new world where everyone's portfolio is going to be slightly different to suit their needs, but it's ultimately tied to some sort of house view or policy. So the deviation amongst individual experiences is within some tolerable range. And of course, MSCI produces tools to allow advisors to do exactly that.
That's really interesting, a brave new era. Could you give me an example of maybe some of the elements in that portfolio that may be different, that may be customized, that maybe advisors would be interested in?
Yeah, so let's take you and I, for example, our individual portfolios, right? We're roughly the same age. Perhaps I have a certain preference to avoid the financial sector in my personal portfolio because I work for MSCI, and that's a level of customization I want, whereas you have no such preference. You're not concerned with it. So whether it's sectors, whether it's factors, whether it's sustainability and climate, there are all sorts of personalization screens that are increasingly being employed. There's also the wrapper question, right? We had already discussed the tax differences between ETFs and direct index SMAs. Maybe you're more tax sensitive than I am, so you want a higher percentage of your total portfolio to be in individual securities, whereas I'm more comfortable having my entire portfolio in ETFs. Those are generally the differences, but if we're both in a 60-40 portfolio that is monitored by some sort of risk or portfolio rebalancing tool, ultimately our outcomes are fairly similar in the end.
Where do you see this trend going then? You said it's like I like the phrase brave new era. You have been talking about it at this conference for sure. I've heard that too. So what's the runway like? Where are we heading over the next few years in terms of direct investing?
Well, one of the things we haven't talked about already is AI. And of course, that will be a major tool for advisors to help personalize the client experience, right? In a world where you can meet with the average client maybe 4 times a year, I think AI will allow them to service that client in a more holistic way, make sure that client sort of feels the attention on a consistent basis. So I think we'll see all of that increase, and I mostly view it as a relationship management efficiency tool for advisors. We already touched on it a little bit, but the increasing automation of the investment process. And if you just take one tactical example, portfolio optimization. It was not necessarily a mainstream thing in wealth management 10 years ago. If you look into 2025 and beyond, it is becoming increasingly mainstream with the tax optimization that we've discussed, but also portfolio construction and maintenance and monitoring. And again, MSCI delivers all these types of tools to allow advisors to do that efficiently. But I see, continued efficiency with AI and the increasing automation of the investment process as being the major themes going forward.
All right, perfect. Appreciate your insights. Thanks for coming by.
All right. Thanks
All
for having
right.
me.
And thanks everyone too for joining us at Investment News TV. We'll see you next time.